So rather than have you set up a broadcast or multicast face, the organizers have graciously arranged to provide for us a hub. And you can all connect, you can make a TCP overlay connection to the hub and set up your fib so that it points all interests in the namespace towards the hub. The address of that hub is on this board, so it's IP 147.46.121.242. And that should be, if everything was done correctly, that should be a publicly accessible IP address. Of course, we have to get into an IP address here because we're dealing with making an IP overlay over the networks that you've got access to. So the idea is that there's a CCND running on the standard port at that IP address, and that you should be able to set up a tunnel to it and point your fib at it and go to town. We want to actually maybe test or try some of this. So one of the things we're doing is getting the example code that we use today accessible so that you will be able to pull that down and try playing with it and running it, just on your own machine. Of course, the hub, the CCND there, you're not going to have access to restart that CCND and flush that cache anytime you want. So part of the fun of the exercise, I guess, is to think about how to operate in a condition where that cache has what it has and you don't have any control over it.
You might mention, as we were saying earlier, had we set staleness, we would have had a lot less time problems because the default staleness of 4 seconds means that the stuff that you've got in those CCND goes away after 4 seconds rather than hanging around for years. You can set staleness in your program. It's a parameter that's available in all of the APIs. And if you're running the most recent CCND, you can set a default staleness that will be applied to anything that doesn't have staleness. And you might save yourself a lot of pain where you write a program with one namespace, it's got a minor mistake, and you end up with a cache with a bunch of garbage in it that you can't get rid of. So you have to change your namespace or do something really different to kind of work around that garbage. You could instead set staleness, and it will go away after a few seconds. So your state is still live on. Just one thing to think about in doing your homework. We didn't cover it in any of the examples, but it is a parameter you can set that can keep you out of a mess.
So we're just trying to check something on the configuration of that hub. If you think about it, and what we talked about with registration earlier, the other thing is when you connect to that hub, it's not like a registration. It's automatically going to get, or is going to allow you to set up a fib on that hub to point back to you. So you can set your fib on your local CCND to point a prefix to that hub. But since we want it to operate sort of like a broadcast domain, we also want that if somebody else sends an interest to that hub, we want that interest to come to your machine. Otherwise, how could they get content that you produce? If they're a consumer and they're sending an interest, and we're going to interoperate, then that interest has to be able to reach the producer on your machine. And in order for that to happen, the fib on the hub has to say that your machine, or the face towards your machine, is a reasonable place to send interests with the prefix that we're using. There's a trick, if you will, there's a feature of CCND that enables this without giving all of you access to manipulate the fib on that hub. And this is called the auto registration feature. And it's activated by an environment variable when we run CCND. And what it basically says to CCND is, whenever you accept a new tunnel connection from some other CCND, automatically put this prefix on that face. So every time one comes in, that prefix will get attached to it. And by that means, you don't have to actually do anything explicit to the fib on the hub CCND. But when you set up your tunnel, it's going to cause your CCND to initiate a tunnel connection, a TCP connection to the hub. And the CCND on the hub, on the standard port, automatically just accepts such a connection and starts receiving interest and returning data. But with the auto-reg set, it will also set its own fib to point the prefix back, so that as people connect and make these tunnels, we should end up with a whole bunch of faces for the same prefix, pointing back to all of your individual machines. And because this is a publicly accessible internet address, you should be able to do it from whatever network you're on, unless your network has some peculiar firewall that doesn't let you initiate a TCP connection out to an arbitrary port. As long as you can make that TCP connection out from the network you're on, this should all work, in theory. Of course, you know, the difference between theory and practice is greater in practice than theory. So, first of all, we have to touch on how you do this, because you have to configure your CCND, and you use the CCNDC program to do that. So, that looks like, I'm going to stop this guy now. If you type CCNDC, it apparently doesn't do anything at all. Some of our commands give you the help. There -H gives me the help, so I can see the basic schema for this. And that basic schema, what we're going to look at using is we want to add. We're going to specify a URI, that is the CCNx prefix that should be associated with this face. We're going to specify, we're going to use TCP for making these overlay connections. And we're going to specify the host. Now the host is this IP address over here on the board. And other flags and ports and stuff like that, those are optional. You can leave all that off. So let's see if I can make this go on the first try. Now, what is the prefix? Can anybody tell me what the prefix is? I've actually forgotten what the prefix is. It's in the homework.
AsiaFI.
Okay. I thought that was it. Does that look right? So we want to add a face for that prefix. We want it to be TCP. And we want it to go to 147.121.242, I think it is. Yes.
You should have a comma.
Yes, thank you. That will not work so well. Okay. So it kind of line wraps awkwardly there, but I think that this is what we want to do. Now, you should all know whether this works or fails, that if you get a working configuration that you want to use, you can put it in a configuration file, and then you can use the -F option to get it again. But even better, you can put it in a configuration file in the .ccnx directory in your home directory, which is where you'll find key stores and things needed as well. And if you do that, then every time you start CCND with CCND start, it will, you don't put the CCNDC name, you put the add and everything else, and there's a sample config file in the release. You can put that config file there, and then every time you start CCND or restart your CCND, it will automatically do the add again. But I'm doing the command line version here. So let's see what happens. Okay, so that's nice. And let me find the status page again. Okay, so here is my status page for my local example, CCNd, see localhost 9695. I need to refresh this and see. Oh, look at this. We have face 11. It's remote to this IP address, 9695, the standard port. That looks good. And if we look down here in the forwarding table, CCNx, AsiaFI, face 11. That looks like it worked. Now, what I'm going to do, note how this is cleverly a link in the web version of the status page. If I click on this link, okay, that's not working so well. Is it working? Maybe everyone is pounding on it now and it's overloaded. What this, of course, is trying to do is to bring up the status page for that central hub CCND, which is not working for me. Oh, you can't even get to the machine, okay. Okay, our helpful TAs are working on that problem.
Can you stop and connect again?
Okay.
And connect the.
Oh, yes, sorry.
There's something.
That's always possible. Yes, well, as a matter of fact, I'm having trouble retrieving a web page now, so. Maybe we've all started trying to do this and we completely overloaded on the Wi-Fi. Okay, so you can see from this that there are a few connections up that have been made. Now let's look and see if, I see. Is the AsiaFI all lowercase in the homework definition? So I typed the wrong thing on my CCND X one. Well, that's not going to work very well. And so what I can do is go back to mine. And now I have lowercase AsiaFI on mine. And let's see. I think we're all stressing now. So here we So you need all of them. So this is, yes. So we actually have a longer prefix that's being auto-registered, which should be fine as long as whatever you do is within that prefix. On your local CCND, of course, it would be okay to have a shorter prefix, because all the interest will still get sent over that tunnel. But the one at the central hub has a longer prefix. So you can see that this is the prefix that's being auto-registered on various spaces that are coming up. And we're also in the process of putting up a tarball of the example program code that we used earlier today, with some additional programs that we didn't get to actually show today. So there are C, Java, and Python pieces in that tarball, and it's going to be posted on the website, but it may not have made it there quite yet. Okay. Apparently it is on the website, so I will see if I can get to the website. Okay, so here's the website, and underneath the view homework is the examples download. And if you click on that, you should get a file that's a .tar.gz that you can expand in your own directory and compile those things. For the C pieces, there are make files, so those can build really easily. For Java, there's actually an Eclipse project definition there if you happen to use Eclipse and you have the main CCNx project set up correctly. You may be able to just load it, but you'll have to deal with setting up that to build. And the Python stuff, as long as your CCNx is installed on the machine and you have the PyCCN stuff installed, you should be able to just run those Python programs directly. So that's another thing that you can play with. So again, what we wanted to encourage you to do is to be hands-on, do some hands-on things with this. So you've got a few options. You can try experimenting with running the sample programs yourself and look at them more. You can do the homework exercise. Now, the goal of the homework exercise being divided the way it is that we hope that everyone would be able to at least complete the base homework exercise. And then there are these, I think it's 7 extensions. And we invite all of you to try as many of the extensions as you wish, and whichever ones you wish. So again, don't feel if you want to do an extension that you have to do them in order. If number 7 looks really interesting to you and you've got everything you think you need to do it, feel free to do number 7. We don't expect that everyone, or maybe anyone, as I said, will get all of them done. And as the homework says, there's not necessarily one right answer. This is all an experiment, so have fun with it. You have the hub available. And what we want to do on Wednesday morning when we get back together is we want to talk about what you've learned and the experience, and talk about different approaches to solutions of some of those pieces and what some of the issues might be. Talk about the experiences that you may have had, things that were particularly confusing or surprising as you tried to do this, or as you ran things, especially if you run things with the hub and with other people. And our expectation is that it will take at least all of Wednesday morning to have a full discussion of all of those things. We're now at the end of our official time. I think that there's 1 or 2 final logistical announcements that need to be made. And then encourage you to maybe start trying some of these bits now for a few minutes if you have a chance, and we'll try to answer questions. You have logistical announcements.
This is quick notice. There will be AsiaFI study group meeting in the building number 302 and room number 308. Is across this building. So staff will guide you to the building. So please follow the step. And we also reserve a shuttle bus between here to Hoam Faculty House. So those who are staying in the Hoam can use the shuttle bus. And it's okay. And today evening, tomorrow evening, and Wednesday morning, and this is time. And okay. And for tomorrow, we the reservation is already full, so we cannot use the shuttle bus anymore. So please on the front gate of Hoam at this time. Yeah. Thank you.
You also introduce our TAs.
Oh yeah, okay. So we have 3 TAs in here. The first member is Taejung Jung from SNU. He's a PhD student. And the other is Hyoki Jung from SNU, a master student. If you have any problem during doing your homework, then please ask them. They will be at the research workshop tomorrow too, so you may ask them. Thank you.